humans, how's it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. This is episode 202, and I sat down with Lauren Holiday. She talks about her life, childhood, the adventures on the road, being homeless for a hot minute, discovering her belief system, all sorts of really interesting, fascinating things. And what I love about this show, doing this show, I should say, is that I get to sit down with people who have all these stories, but the bottom line is I always find something when they're talking. I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. That's me. And I feel like anyone listening, I hope people listening have those moments too, where they hear something and I think, oh yeah, I experienced that. That sounds familiar to my life. And I think, well, that's what the great unifier is. Maybe I'm waxing poetic right now. I have had a martini, I'm not going to lie. We are in a global pandemic and things are weird. Things are really weird. But in all the chaos and all the crazy, I'm really delighted to see how much people are coming together and offering help and willing to support each other. And I do believe that sometimes we are at our greatest when things are at its worst. I hope that's true. I think it's true. I hope you all stay safe and stay kind and have patience. Huge shout out to doctors and nurses and emergency workers and firefighters and police and grocery store clerks and janitors and all the people that really are on the front lines right now that are trying to fight this thing for us. Thank you. Thank you for what you do. And man, I'm sure you're exhausted and people are grumpy and they want their toilet paper and they want answers, and sometimes there aren't any answers and sometimes there isn't any toilet paper, as I have found. Anyway, I don't know. It's this sort of stuff makes me think a lot about humanity and what we're all doing and how we're all handling things. Hang in there. Hang in there. Be kind. The usual stuff. Hey Human Podcast is on Facebook and Instagram. Susan Ruthism on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Email me at heyhumanpodcast.com. Remember the links page over there at heyhumanpodcast.com. I curate the list every week, so definitely go and check that out. Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for doing all the things you do. Thanks for hanging on when things seem insurmountable. Because really, at the end of the day, which my best friend Ellen hates that phrase, by the way. So sorry, Ellen. But at the end of the day, we really need each other. And the past couple weeks have proven that, I think, quite a bit. And I don't know. I don't know what the words of encouragement are other than just hang in there and stay home. Keep your distance. If you're sick, I pray to God you get better. And, yeah, love you. Hang on. Here we go. Lauren Holiday, welcome to Hey Human.
Hi, Susan.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
In my little room.
This is awesome.
I like it, too.
I want to ask you about all these books. How's that one?
Oh, it's great. It's funny.
Yeah.
Chelsea Handler, Are You There, Vodka? It's me, Chelsea. It's very funny.
Yeah.
I like her because she's so irreverent. You know, she just she gives no fucks.
Yeah.
She's the honey badger of females, I feel like.
She's one of the reasons I like her comedy so much, because she doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, and she never seems to be trying that hard.
No, it's really honest. It seems very genuine and just like, this is who I am.
Like if you were just hanging out
really
with her,
don't care how you feel about me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that can be said about a lot of comics, I suppose, but there's something more...
Her style is very funny, though, to me.
Yeah, she's just
her perspective.
And she doesn't care if you don't like her. At least her character, whether she's like in real life.
Yeah,
and she owns her sexuality, which I really like.
Yes.
She's, she's got great tits. She's not afraid to show them.
Yeah. Yeah, she has a great body. Yeah.
She does. I can't tell if she's tall or short. Because she's just muscular and compact.
Yeah.
I follow her trainer, Ben, is it something with a B, Bonning or something like this. Is neither here nor there, but he trains a lot of people, and I like how he's transformed a lot of women's bodies and stuff. Is it too warm in here?
It's a little warm, but I was thinking it's because I had this on. Okay. I can totally take this off.
Let me know. I've got to figure that out because it's a closet, right? So there's no...
You have no vent.
No.
Might be warm in the summer. Feels okay right now.
I'm kind of concerned about that.
Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, Lauren, hi.
Hi. And we're back. And scene.
And we're back. I met you at the Second City. Yes.
That's correct.
Yeah, but I didn't really get to talk to you until the Christmas party.
I know. It actually took me a minute to, I knew that I recognized you when I saw you at the holiday party, but it took me a while to be like, the drop-ins.
Yes.
That I had to think of where I had seen you at Second City.
Wednesdays and Saturdays, that's the drop-in days. Although Saturdays don't happen a whole lot to my sadness.
Yeah.
Because Adam Peacock, he teaches Saturdays, and he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I just switched from the Monday class to the Saturday for conservatory.
Oh, well, then I'll see you every weekend then.
Oh, okay. So, but Adam now is teaching Monday, and I'm not sure who's teaching Saturday, but, these are the things. Anyway, back to you. Hello.
Hi.
Let's start at the beginning. Where are you from?
I am from Kansas City, Missouri, originally.
Okay. Good growing up? Bad growing up? Fun? Terrible?
It's actually a good place to grow up if you just want a nice, pleasant, simple, kind of artistic. It's actually a fairly artistic place. I was surprised when I moved out to the West Coast. I thought, I want to be in a more artistic environment. And I got out there and I was like, Kansas City had more artistic qualities than this. They had, a great symphony and a great few museums down there. They have an opera. They have a ballet. They have great children's theater.
I love opera.
A lot of painting, places you can go to learn to paint. And I was just like, oh, this is actually a better arts community.
Why did you leave to come to the West Coast then? Was it because you thought there were better?
In the beginning, honestly, the original idea happened when I was 8 because we used to go to the West Coast a lot when I was a kid. And rather than just fly right into LA or into Orange County, we would fly into San Diego and drive up the coast. And we go back down to San Diego to leave. And when you leave San Diego, the airport's so small that you have to fly out over the ocean because there's a mountain right there. So you can't just go straight east. You have to go out west and then back and gain height and go up. And I looked down and I was like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. I want to live here someday. So I kind of had this idea germinating from the time I was a little kid, but I didn't know why. And so at 25, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take a vacation out there, and if I love it, if I can either find a job or I can find a place to live, I'm moving.
Was your family cool with that, or did they think you were crazy?
I think they probably thought I was a little bit nuts because it was kind of on a whim. It wasn't it wasn't this planned out thing that I had forever and ever. I just needed a change, and I was around these people that I'd been around for so long that I kind of realized I'm not going to be a different person around these people. I tried. It's not happening. I need a new place to start.
What was it about being there you didn't that you didn't like, or what was it about?
I wasn't happy, and I wasn't finding a lot of what I really wanted to do. And there was, there's so much winter and so much summer. You're indoors a lot, and all I was doing was just smoking weed and partying and not really trying that hard. And I woke up one day when I was 25, and I'm like, shit.
Did you go to college there, or?
I did. I didn't finish. Okay. I went to the University of Missouri, Kansas City to get my degree in music. And music composition was what I always wanted to write movie music. So it was something about the entertainment industry my whole life. It was that's what I was going to be in, whether it was a writer or a music writer or an actor or a voice artist. Something about that was always calling to me.
Yeah.
So,
and what happened when you got to LA?
Well, I moved to San Diego first.
San Diego, right.
Yeah, I lived there for 15 years. I met the woman that I fell in love with and married within a month of me being there.
Wow, that's fast.
So, yeah, and I was kind of told that. I actually went and saw a psychic that she does astrology and uses her psychic impressions of the astrology, and she's like, you're moving, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about moving. She's like, you're going to meet somebody almost right away. I was like, oh. Okay, well, that's fun information to have. And so many things she was right about. But I was like, okay. So I'd been there 3 weeks, and I was like, okay, where's this girl? Where's this mysterious person that I'm supposed to meet? And I'm like, I'll go to the bar and see what happens. And I met this woman who I ended up falling in love with. And we were the only 2 people in the bar.
Oh, really?
It was...
That's crazy.
It was Super Bowl Sunday, and we were the only 2 idiot lesbians that didn't know that the Super Bowl was happening literally in San Diego. So you could tell we had something in common right away. She'd just come from the opera. She was like dressed to the nines. I'm just like, who is this woman? So,
wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, did you know the minute you saw her that she was going to be the person, or?
Well, the thing is, we were on opposite ends of the bar, and we kept kind of doing that thing where we're like looking at each other, and then she'd look at me and I'd look at her, and then finally she got up and walked towards me, and my heart did that little, I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to talk to me. She's really cute, And so I don't know if I knew in that moment, but I knew there was something that I was excited about to get to meet her.
Sure.
And then 3 hours went by, which is hard to do sitting in a bar.
Yeah.
In that loud, and it was like, oh wow, 3 hours just went by.
Sure.
And we exchanged phone numbers, and I was all excited to meet her again. So I knew something was there, but I didn't know
Was she older or same age?
She's 10 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was 25 and she was 35 when we met.
I often wonder when I think about, because I've had readings before, and I think, okay, now you're giving me this information for me to take and go do whatever I do with it, but there's that little whisper in your ear, well, you should probably go out because supposedly you're going to meet somebody.
Yes.
And so it's that thing of did you facilitate the thing, or did the thing facilitate you?
How much of that was you going, and okay, well, I had this reading.
Yeah, and maybe it's all, oh shit, you know what I just realized? Is that blinking? Oh, thank God. Oh, it's not blinking, right? No, I was like, oh shit, I forgot to take the thingy, but it's fine. Okay. Thank God. But yeah, you don't know.
I might never have gone out if I hadn't had that and thought, okay, well, why haven't I met this person yet?
Sure, and maybe because it's like a circle.
I had that expectation, so maybe that's the night she decided to go to the bar, but otherwise she wouldn't have.
Who knows? Who knows? So it's fun to think about.
Yeah, because she's told me even I never come here. It just happened to be close to where I went to the opera, and I didn't want to quite go home yet because I was really exhilarated after the.
The opera's amazing. I love the opera.
She'd never been, so it was just really? This was a new thing for her.
Do you remember what she saw? Just out of curiosity.
I want to say she saw the magic flute.
Okay, good one. Very good. Yeah,
but then we immediately went to cartoons and the Porky Pig thing.
Sure. Cartoons have a lot of opera in them.
Exactly. Yeah, and the moment we connected on that, I was like, you don't understand. You just spoke to my soul. Because that's me. That's
Yeah, you have a lot of cartoony stuff at your apartment. I think I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Or was that my imagination?
Between the music and the animation and voiceover, it was all, I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening right now.
So how long till you got married? You got married, right?
We got married, but it wasn't legal until 2008. So we were domestic partners until then. And never really thought that we would even have the opportunity to get married. So it wasn't anything that was in my head.
Did getting married change? I often wonder that people, you hear about couples that are together for years and years and years and years. Everything's copacetic. And then they go and get married. And then they're broken up. And I often want to say, is it because they did the marriage thing to try and fix maybe something that was wrong, or is it just the realization of, oh my God, now I'm supposedly trapped because this piece of paper says I'm trapped? Yeah,
exactly. I think in my case, it was kind of already starting to be the beginning of the end by the time we got married, because we were 11 years in at that point. And
is that in the world record for lesbian couples?
Could be. Because
there's always that joke. What do lesbians do on a first date? They gotta
move in together,
or whatever. Yeah, gotta U-Haul together.
Yep. Yeah. It was pretty quick. Within 3 months or so, we were exclusive, and then we moved in together within a year, which is, I guess, kind of a regular time frame. Yeah, that's pretty long for lesbians. And you'd always
dated girls, not?
No, I'm bisexual.
Okay.
But I knew that I was looking for a relationship with a woman. At that time, I kind of thought maybe I was only going to ever be with women, and so I wasn't really looking for anything outside of that. And as soon as I met her, I was like, oh, well, this is it. So, Yeah. Yeah, and then we were only married 3 years. So it was that thing of wow. I don't know if the psychological thing of us being married had an effect, but I do think we were sort of starting to be at the beginning of the end, and the marriage revitalized things, and maybe we lasted longer than we would have, or it made things better for a while, and then, but like we were kind of slowly moving apart. Because I was so young when we got together, and I didn't really know who I was. And
oh yeah, that's a big growth spurt between 25 and 30.
Yeah, 35. And at 35, so I was 36
really.
At this point, and then started doing stand-up comedy, and like sort of got an idea of who I wanted to be, and it didn't really fit in with who we were together as a couple. And so, as supportive as she was, we kind of like sort of millimeter started growing apart at that point.
And I feel like too, if you, and of course, as a straight person, I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like if I were told I couldn't do something like get married to the person I love, and then suddenly it became available to me, I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
You know, because I've been oppressed by it for so long.
Yeah, we did. We got married in 6 weeks. We put an entire wedding together in 6 weeks because we knew, like, we saw it coming of like, oh, this seems more like an open enrollment period than an actual, like, this is going to be legal. And that's exactly what it turned out to be, because by the time the vote came around, it was illegal again. So if we hadn't got married in that 6 week period, it wouldn't have, like, we would have had to wait another few years.
Isn't that wild?
So, yeah.
So crazy to me.
Yeah.
That anyone can.
So oddly enough, my only legal marriage has been to a woman.
Have you been married more than once?
No, just to her. And so I'm divorced in California, yet single, never married in the rest of the country, because at that time, like, the federal government didn't acknowledge it. So I never know what to do on my taxes. I'm like, I think I'm single, but I still live in California. So I'm divorced for my state taxes, and I'm single for my federal taxes. And
what a weird conundrum.
It's so stupid.
Yeah, it is pretty stupid. Okay, so what happens then? You get divorced, and now you're in a new frame of, all right, now I'm on my own again.
Yes.
What did you do?
Well, I was pursuing stand-up comedy at that time, and so I really focused, because I was so heartbroken, I kind of really focused heavily on my professional life, and like, okay, this is the whole reason that I'm single now, basically, is I've found this new person that I want to be. So let's put everything into that.
What was different about the person you were versus that person that was about to embark on this new journey?
I think mainly because I had always not known what I wanted, so I was very supportive of her. We ran a business together. We worked together 24/7. We lived together. We built this business. And once it sort of became clear that I knew what I wanted to do, was like, well, I suddenly didn't want to be running this business with her. I wanted to finally, like, I'm 35 now. I finally know what I want to do. I got to follow this. And like I said, as supportive as she was, she still needed this other person there to help her run the business and, like, you know, be in that relationship. Mm-hmm. And
what was your humor? What was your stand-up like? What was your thing? You know how everybody's got like whatever non sequiturs or music or, you know, whatever it is. What was yours?
I did a lot of act outs. And
what is that?
Act outs, where that's where you actually almost, it's like an acting gig almost, where you're performing the story as the person in the story.
Oh, that's fun.
And then
like a monologuist or
no, more, it's definitely in joke format, but there's physicality to it. Like you're acting out the action of the story.
Got it.
So rather than just stand there and tell it, I would get into the movement and the, you know, the position of the story. I had a story about, like, the way my dad used to drive me on the back of the car sledding, but we had a Baja bug, so he didn't think about, like, you know, when he went downhill, he would stop and the sled would keep going. And so I was on a stool, like, with my feet up in the air, trying to position my feet up on the Baja bug so I didn't end up in the engine. And so you're acting out the story. Yeah. And then, a lot of, like, perspective, like my perspective on very situational things in my life. So
how did you do as a stand-up?
I did pretty well. Like, I got to where I did it for 4 years, and, you know, it's one of those odd jobs where it's on-the-job training. You can't really, like, practice it other than being on stage.
Performance in general, I think.
You're not good when you start. Sure. You're just not. You're the very rare person that walks up on stage and is just funny right away and has the timing and understands the flow of, like, how to go from one type of joke or set of jokes to the next set and how they fit together and how to adjust that on the spot. Like when you have an audience that isn't reactive to certain things that you're talking about, you have to be like, okay, well, they're not into this type of thing. So then you, in your brain, you're telling jokes and at the same time you're revising your set, you know, so it just comes with time of like being on stage and getting the timing. And
it's an art form.
Yeah. Knowing how long to wait for people laughing, because sometimes you get nervous and you just keep going, but you need to give that kind of space for people to enjoy it and interpret, and they need that time to go, oh yeah, that's happened to me too, because that's when it's funny for them. When they listen to you and go, oh my God, I've been in that same situation, they need to kind of relive it in their head for a second. So you got to know how long that space is, and so it takes time.
It's really an interactive art form then. It's not just...
It is.
Which is fascinating too.
It doesn't seem like it.
It doesn't.
It's a solo performance, but it is a performance with the audience.
Yeah, that's wacky.
So, yeah, so that takes some time. And then I realized I was really good at writing a set, and I had really good stage presence. So I had some things going for me right from the beginning, because you need the audience to trust you when you're doing stand-up. If you don't have that trust, you don't have the audience. And so just within a few seconds, you got to get up on stage and kind of command the stage and let people know, hey, it's okay. It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I got your back. This is going to be fun. You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I had that. So I had that going for me, because I didn't just immediately lose the audience. So they were mine to lose to start, which is a great place to start from. But then, you know, I had bad sets and didn't know how to deal with hecklers and I wasn't on stage for a month after one time I got heckled. I was just like, I'm never doing it again. It's horrible.
The thing that just drives me crazy, I go to a lot of stand-ups. I stand-up comedy because I love it so much, and the hecklers make me crazy, because like you were saying about that moment of saying, I've got you, audience, you're in my care. And then some jackass, likely drunk, makes some rude comment or gets mad or does this thing where they cross their arms and they're pissed at whatever you're talking about, you know, whatever that is.
They decided that loud conversation with the person next to them.
But yeah, and they're doing it to the whole audience.
Yes.
Suddenly, now all the attention is on this person, and the rest of the audience doesn't feel cared for or protected or safe even. It's weird.
It is. It's a violation.
It does feel like that. It probably sounds like hyperbole to a lot of people, but I've been in audiences where somebody makes a comment or does something and it just changes the entire dynamic of the room. And then the rest of us, it takes us a long time to get
You may never get back.
Yes,
you may never get back.
It's so rude.
And as the stand-up person, you have to know instinctively, like, oh, I have to deal with this right now, because nobody's listening to anything I say after that moment until I address that person.
Yeah, it's almost like you're the there's a schoolyard bully, and you're the kind of the head of you're the head of the weirdos, right? And all the weirdos are standing behind you, which is the audience.
Yes.
And we're all like, are you going to protect us
Take
from
care of this?
Yeah, that's what it feels like, you know?
Tell the guy who's boss, you know? Like, you sort of need that moment of like, and you don't even have to so much as like, it's not like a win-lose situation. It's just like
shutting it down.
You have to shut it down, and the quicker you can shut it down, the faster the audience is back with you and listening to you again. Even if they're looking at you, they're still thinking about that guy until you've addressed it.
It's absolutely true.
That's how I started taking improv. Is I was like, oh, I'm not real good at that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, did that help?
It did help a lot. As a matter of fact, I loved improv so much I stopped doing stand-up because I fell in love with improv, and it was a whole different art form, and one that I really needed because I wasn't good at collaborating or letting somebody else take the lead, or you know, just the listening skills required for improv. I didn't have any of that, and I was like, okay, well, I learned a lot from stand-up, but I kind of feel done now. Kind of feel like I got everything out of it that I wanted to get, surprisingly, because I thought I'd do it forever.
Yeah, and the listening thing is just so... I talk about that a lot on this show, but the idea that as a stand-up performer, you're talking. You're the only one, hopefully, talking. But the whole audience is also talking. They're just doing it in silence. They're responding non-verbally, their body language, all the things that they're doing. You, on the stage, you're having to pick up on that whole thing, on this like deeply intuitive level.
Yeah, the lean forward.
It's such an amazing thing to watch a master, and even a non-master. It's just such a fascinating thing to watch comedians in their art form. I love it so much.
It's fun to watch. I remember I used to always be in awe of Chris Rock because he was one of the few that could actually, no matter what room he was in, he commanded 100%, and everybody in that room was going, yes. Yes, oh, I've been there. Oh, I know that situation. No matter black, white, young, old, male, female, they were with him. And so few comedians have that thing where just everybody is like nodding and leaning forward and like they're into it and just, he had that.
Yeah, and it's interesting how comics, how they're all so different. Like a Robin Williams was like, you took a balloon and a full balloon and you just cut the end and you watch it zoom around the room and you're trying to follow. You're trying to follow it and keep up and you're excited. You're like, it's exciting to watch somebody like that.
Yeah.
It's also wonderful. I love it. Were you nursing a broken heart for a long time then as you were working through the stand-up stuff?
Yeah, it probably took me, a good solid month of like crying every night, listening to sad songs and like,
Sure. Did you have a go-to song?
I don't know why I was like into La Vie en Rose that month. It just, every time I'd hear it, I'd be like, oh God, I don't even know. It's French. I don't know what they're saying, but it had my heart. And that one, and it was a Nina Simone song. I can't even think which one it was now, that just had me in tears freaking every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's not great.
It's funny now, and I even knew at the time, like, I know this is going to be funny like a year from now.
Sure.
But right now, it's not.
Yeah.
It was a crazy time. It was a lot of transformation because I'd been with her for so long that you sort of, in a way, you stop your personal growth a little bit because you've become the second half of another person. And so when you're with somebody for 14 years, even if it's a healthy relationship, when it ends, you're like, okay, who am I again? Who's just me? And so there was just a lot of personal growth happening in that like year period where I had separated from her. I was kind of just starting to date and seeing a bunch of people and like, do I fit with this person? Do I just want to be single? And I was just so personally unhappy that I just really 100% focused on my career. And my career was going so well. Like, I was getting all these acting gigs, and I was like, I think this was possible in San Diego. There's not a ton of acting work there, but there's also not a huge pool of people. So if you're decent, you kind of rise to the top pretty fast, and you start getting offered gigs regularly. So I was actually making income as an actor and like taking classes and like starting to come up to LA for auditions and I took my first Second City class, and I just was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. So I just 100% focused on that because it was the only thing that I felt like was going right at the time.
So what happened next? Because I know you've had some interesting upheavals here and there. So what was your next step then? As you started to go out of the stand-up and into improv, and then did you make the decision around that same time to come here, or what?
I did. That's when I met Tony. And Tony and I were both doing stand-up at the time in San Diego, and so we kept running into each other at gigs.
And Tony, just for the listeners, is your fiancé.
Is my fiancé, right?
And a boy.
A man.
That's a man.
That's a man. Who knew? Surprised everyone. It's like my parents finally got used to the idea of me marrying a woman and then walking me down the aisle. I was like, no, you were married to a woman. Now that's all. It's like, wait a minute, 10 years ago, you couldn't handle this. Now you can't handle that I'm dating a man. Like, just come on, keep up.
That's hilarious.
So I met Tony, and it definitely was not like sparks flying, not in the positive direction. We actually were quite adversarial when we first met.
Awesome.
We just really pushed each other's buttons. In so many ways. God, I can't even say, like, it was just so many things. I got on his nerves.
He has a lot of energy, though, too.
He's very intense.
Energy.
He's very intense, and he's incredibly honest. And so he was one of the few people, I think, because I was doing well in San Diego, and people were almost kind of treating me with kid gloves a little bit, where he was like, yeah, no, who the fuck do you think you are? And I was like, I wasn't really ready for that kind of honesty. And so I got very stubborn, and we just kind of butted heads a lot. But at the same time, it intrigued me because here's this person who's just laying it all on the line of like, this is who I am. If you can't handle it, I don't really care. And that of course, you know how interesting that is. It's the
sure.
person that you most want to know is the person who's like,
Right.
so.
Bad boys.
Bad boys. Yeah. And he was very different than anybody I'd ever known.
He doesn't strike me as a bad boy so much. Maybe in his past.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that later. But
when he was younger, he's actually this beautiful teddy bear of a soul.
Oh, he's a good guy.
That like people are scared of because he's so intimidating looking that they assume he's a bad boy.
Mm-hmm. He's a strong.
He's big.
Yeah.
He's burly.
Like a bulldog.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So where did things start to go? Oh, wait a minute.
Oddly enough.
And also, when that happened, I'm curious, since you self-identified as a lesbian this whole time, that must have been like, well, wait, what is going on?
It was interesting. It was. I mean, I knew as soon as I started dating again, I had an interest in both men and women. So he wasn't like the only guy I dated, but it was interesting after having been with a woman for so long. Simply just like, oh, there's chin hair poking me when I kiss. I forgot that happens.
Had you ever been
chest hair
with a man before?
I had. I had in like high school from like 16 to about 22. I dated mostly men.
Got it.
And then
that's right, because you're bisexual.
Yeah. And then 22 to like 25 was kind of both. And then I started leaning towards women. So it's kind of been this weird spectrum where it hasn't ever. It's a period where it was only guys, and there's a period where it was only women, and it's a period where there was both. And so,
you know, it's interesting because I've read stuff, and I've heard from a couple of my friends who are bisexual, and they get weirdly picked upon that by the opposite communities, saying, you know, you just haven't picked a side yet. And I find that fascinating too. Did you experience that?
Yeah, I mean, this was also the 90s, which was a different time when I was coming out, and you kind of couldn't be bisexual back then, not openly, because of that. Like, lesbians for sure did not want to be around you if you were bisexual. It was like some sort of violation, like you're on the other team and you're a spy or something. And it was just really weird reaction from certain groups. And then men were kind of like, yeah, aren't all women bisexual? Oh. I was like, I'm not trying to fucking
titillate you.
Yeah, this is not for your benefit, dude. I'm just telling you who I am. So you tend to kind of keep that inside. And for sure, my ex-wife was not that comfortable with it. So, and because as soon as you're with a woman, people identify you as a lesbian, and I just didn't dissuade that as much as I could have or should have, because she was uncomfortable with it. And I was with her, and I didn't intend to be with anybody else. So why did it matter what anybody else labeled me as? I was happy to say I was lesbian.
The tiny pieces of ourselves that we tuck away in boxes to make our lovers comfortable. The boxes start to pile up after a while. Yeah. And then you've got the luggage department at Macy's, and you're thinking, where did this come from?
Yes. Yeah, that was my fault, and I didn't know any better.
It's all of our fault. We all do it because, we're with a person that we love and we want to make them happy.
Yes.
But
it's not in the best interest of either of you, and you don't realize it at the time that it's dishonesty.
It would be interesting if, you could look at it metaphorically as, let's just say every time I made an allowance that helped you but hurt me, helped you make you feel more comfortable around me. I began removing a part of my body. Say I start with a pinky, and then the next finger, and the next finger. And if you looked at it in that respect, by the time you are done and you're in this middle of this relationship where you've given up so much of yourself to make the other person happy, you're just a stump, basically. But we don't think about it like that because it's emotions, and you don't really notice how much you chip away at your emotional health in placating another person's really insecurities, right?
Yep. Very much so.
What would your partner care? I'm not as a whole. What would your partner care if like if you said I'm a bisexual? How does that hurt?
Right.
Her.
Right.
It doesn't.
Because the trust should be there.
Right.
And
if it's
that
not,
doesn't
then
mean anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So it should have been something we should have been able to be comfortable about it, and the fact that we weren't should have been a red flag. But I was too dumb to know that at the time, and
Oh man, yeah, we've all been there. the red flags on the field. You're like, wow, there's sure a lot of red flags around here.
What are these doing here?
Oh my goodness.
I didn't notice them at all.
You make a parachute out of the red flags and you jump out the window and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So Tony is under your skin.
Yes.
He's giving
for
you.
Sure.
So what switched over to?
Oddly enough, it was Valentine's Day. And I had been dating this guy that we'd broken up multiple times. I don't know why I was still with him. It was like not healthy at all. We were kind of like addicted to each other. And this was like the last straw. And I was upset and I'd been crying all day. And a friend of mine was saying he was going to have like a house party. This was when they were trying to make cannabis legal. And so this was like a let's make it legal kind of party. And it just happened to be down the street from where I had an apartment at the time. I was like, God, I've got to just get out of the house. I can't sit here and wallow in the self-pity any longer. Sure. I've been crying on and off all day. Right? There's nothing else for me to do except go to a party and forget about all of this. And I walk in and it was like literally like The King and I, some enchanted evening when you see the person across the room. And I saw him and I was like, oh my God, Tony Kim is here. And like my heart did that thing. And he looked at me with the same, like, it was like there was all these people standing in between us and they just went and separated. And he just like was right here, even though he was across the room. And his intense gaze at me, I knew he was thinking the same thing that I was thinking. I'm like, oh shit, I might have some feelings for this guy, like other than I can't stand him. He pisses me off all the time. I'm hilarious. Like, and so we ended up like dancing together, and I think because I didn't expect to see him there, and so because when I did, and I had that immediate reaction, that's when I realized I'm like, oh, I really feel something for this guy. So.
Yeah, you can always tell you like somebody when they make you want to throw up.
Yeah, for sure. So that's when it changed from like, he's this guy I know to, who is this guy?
And so he was doing stand-up, you were doing stand-up. Mm-hmm. So you joined forces? Do you move in together right away? Do you just decide to start dating?
We started dating, but we got exclusive pretty quick. No, we didn't actually. No, we were still dating other people for a little bit. But we got close very quickly. And even though we didn't move in or anything, within like a month, we were talking about like moving to LA. Because he had always wanted to move to LA to pursue stand-up comedy. And I had always wanted to move to LA to pursue acting. I had just about finished doing stand-up at this point. I was like at the very end and he was still kind of doing it. But we both had this desire to move to LA together. And we were both like, okay, well, we're grown-ups here. Like, could we possibly talk about doing this with this budding relationship happening and just make a promise that we are going to be adults and move to Los Angeles and not fuck each other over if things don't work out like romantically? Could we, because this is a goal that we both have.
And you were in your late 30s at this point?
I had just, I was 41.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, I turned 40 the year that I got divorced.
A real grown-up person.
I mean, it was, when they talk about turning 40, that was like the year, all the oats got sowed and all of the midlife crisis things happened. And
you had a midlife crisis?
I mean, just a crisis of who I was,
sure.
You know, of like figuring out.
Because you had one after the breakup, and now you had a second.
Well, no, this is the same time period.
Same time period.
Yeah,
got it.
From the time that I.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like 2 years total.
Got it.
But so I was 41. I got divorced at 40, and this was 41. We just started talking about moving to LA and seeing if we could maybe make that happen as two people together versus, because I couldn't make it work for me financially by myself. And I was really scared. And I didn't know, like, the same thing that everybody thinks when they're moving to LA is like, how do I get a survival job where I'm not going to be working 70 hours a week to make enough rent to make it worth being here, because I won't ever have time to audition.
Exactly.
I got to have time to audition.
Yeah, that doesn't make it moot. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Otherwise, I might as well just stay in San Diego and commute. It's not that far. And so that's what I did for a couple of years, and it worked just fine. But I was getting to that point where I was like, no, if I want to go to the next level, I really need to be in LA. Just the mindset and being able to go to a party. I can't say yes to those type of things from San Diego. I can only go to an audition and come back, or go to a gig and come back. I can't make any connections. So we both were at that point at the same time. So we decided, you know what, let's give it a shot. So within 3 months, we moved to Los Angeles.
And was it hard?
It was.
Because I think I remember at that Christmas party that you said something about, did you live in your car, or was that my imagination?
That was after. So we moved to Los Angeles, and within a month of us moving to Los Angeles, and I basically broke ties with pretty much my whole life, because everything in San Diego had to do with my ex-wife and her family, and my friends were tied up with it. So I kind of just left all of San Diego. I'm not that connected with my family in Kansas City, so I was pretty alone when I moved to Los Angeles. And then a month later, my dad passed away. And it was shocking because he had a heart attack, massive heart attack from one day to the next. He was only 75. So it wasn't he had this prolonged illness. We knew it was coming. No, it was from one day to the next, he was just gone.
That's awful. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then I had this unexpected amount of money come to me that I was like, that was his retirement. This isn't mine. What do I do with this? Paid off all my bills and bought a car, and it was great. But then I was freaking out inside, being in LA and being with this guy that I barely knew, and then having this sort of rug pulled out from under me of the one stability person in my life had just died. And so I kind of had an existential crisis, and we ended up going on the road. We ended up leaving Los Angeles and going on a road trip that lasted for months.
You and Tony. What was the goal of it?
The goal was that we both started going through a spiritual enlightenment at that time. We were both atheists or agnostic or on that sort of side of the spectrum. I
like to look at it as a spectrum.
It is, when I look at it through my life, it's been a more belief, less belief, a lot of belief, no belief. It's a spectrum. So at that point in my life, I had been Taoist for a long time, but that's a philosophy, not a religion. And so I was very nature-based, science-based. I believed in all of that, and God to me was maybe some sort of energy. And then all of a sudden, we both had an awakening at the same time, within a couple of months of each other, moving to LA, and we came into a bunch of new knowledge that was kind of downloaded. This is at a time when I guess everybody's kind of having a spiritual awakening right now. It's just that time on the planet where we're having a larger perspective, when...
Waking up, I like to call
waking
it.
Up, exactly. Waking up. We had a waking up moment, and we freaked out. We freaked out.
Why did it freak you out?
First of all, when you're atheist, to have God be like, hi, I've been here the whole time, you just decided to close the door, was a shock. My whole belief system kind of just got turned upside down, and my paradigm was gone.
Did anything or anyone facilitate that? You picked up a leaflet, or was it more something from the inside out?
It actually happened to him first. So he'd be better at
describing
what was the facilitation for him.
Okay, I'll ask him when I talk to him.
We were doing a lot of, honestly, we found God through math. He's a nuclear scientist, so his background was nuclear physics, and I'd always been interested in physics and metaphysics and the cosmology of our universe. And so when we started talking about things, we started Googling shit, dividing by zero, and all of these ideas that are mathematical ideas, or the Fibonacci sequence and sacred geometry, and we're like, okay, well, it all keeps leading back to the same place. What is this? I was like, oh shit, it's the pattern of the universe. It's the divine creation. It's God. Oh crap. And so we found it together, but he really understood it first. He had this understanding of it that just shifted him instantly, and he started getting downloads of information about the structure of the universe. And
explain to people what that means. I understand, but I think a lot of people are what, on the computer?
Yeah, it is kind of like plugging in. It's the way they describe it in the Matrix, where you literally plug in to universal knowledge.
And it's just something where you wake up one day and suddenly you know things that you didn't know the day before.
Yes. Things that you didn't have any privy to before. And it's not that the information wasn't there or accessible. It's that you were closed off to it. You had that door closed. And so the moment you say, okay, I'm open, I'm willing to see things maybe a little bit differently than how I've looked at them before, that's it. you get that information instantly. If you are ready to handle it, you start getting information.
Were you scared?
Oh yeah, I was terrified.
Why?
He changed instantly. He started talking in ways he'd never talked before. He was saying things that it wasn't the same person that I'd known, like that I met in San Diego. He like just instantly changed, and it started bringing up all of his unhealed places.
Because he had a lot of trauma.
Anger, his fear. Sure. Yeah, he had a lot of trauma.
He'll talk about that.
And it started coming out. And so it triggered me. And we had this weird, I feel like we were meant to be together because our trauma triggered each other. And in order for me to heal from the things that I needed to heal from, I needed someone exactly like him to be the person he was, to trigger me, for my passiveness to be addressed, and for my...
Have you been insulted? Is that...
Yeah, you know.
So you had to pull all that stuff out.
Right. And we went through trauma at a very young age. Like, he went through his things from like 5 to 10, and I went through my things from like 5 to 10. So it was in these formative years where I feel like it was important that we suffered trauma at the same age, because psychologically it did something to us that only that person would know how to heal. If that makes any sense at all.
It makes complete sense.
So
you operated as each other's mirror, and
correct.
And it's really interesting because almost, I suppose, when you're going through it with someone, if you already have acknowledged that they've gone through the same thing, then their healing, I suppose, acts like a salve to your own.
It did not in the beginning. It did later. In the beginning, it was frustrating because I didn't go through it at the same pace he did. He started it, and then I could see that something was changing in him, and I wanted it, but I also wasn't quite ready for it. And so I sort of was like, in the beginning, sort of like pulled through the enlightenment process unwillingly. I had a certain amount of willingness, otherwise it wouldn't have happened. You know, you have to at least say like, I'm open to it. Yeah. But
had you known, you know, some people don't remember their trauma. Did you know it was there?
I did. I did have repressed memories, but they flooded back to me when I was 16.
Oh.
So I knew that all of that had happened, even though I'd had like repressed memories from between 5 and 10.
Were you able to address the person that victimized you? Or?
No, unfortunately not, because it was my grandfather, so he had passed away by that time. Yeah. And the other person was some random person in Florida when we were on vacation that abused me in the ocean, of all things. And honestly, the moments of abuse that happened in my life were less traumatic than the culture of abuse that I was growing up in, because it was my family that really facilitated it.
How do you mean?
My mom took me to be babysat by my grandfather, and she'd been abused by him.
So she knew better.
She knew better, but she didn't know how to protect me. And so I grew up in this family where we didn't talk about those things, and we hid them. And so that to me was way more damaging than the actual event, because the actual event was not that traumatic. Like when you hear people talk about being raped or things, and I'm like, my heart goes out to them when they talk about this devastatingly violent experience. It was not that for me. It was more that I then had to go home and like not talk about it and not address it, and then pretend like it wasn't you that put me in that situation to be victimized.
Talk to your mom about it later?
I did. When I got the memories came back to me at 16, and I was like, hey, look, this happened to me. And she's like, oh yeah, it happened to me too. And I was
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Like, what do you mean it happened to you too? Oh yeah, and it happened to your sister, and it happened to your aunt, and every female in the family.
Why has it been a legacy of not...
Why would you put me in that situation?
What did she say?
She's like, I didn't know any better. You know, she had a lot of denial. She just, her way of coping was denial. And she said to me, like, well, your father and I wanted to go out to dinner, and we didn't have money to afford dinner and a movie and a babysitter. And I was like,
oh my God.
You fucking sold me out for dinner and a movie? Like, my heart exploded. Like, and I was just done. Like, all my trust was shattered at that point. So that that was what I had to get over, was my relationship with my mother, way less than what happened with my grandfather. Because it was the culture of abuse that I grew up in, of just like, we don't talk about these things.
Yeah, and being
sweep
led
them
like
under
a
the
lamb to
rug.
slaughter.
Yes. And it happened for so many women for generations. And so on the one hand, I can forgive her for that and go like, she didn't know any better. She could not cope any better than she did, or she would have never put me in that situation. She was so passive, she couldn't even protect herself, much less her family. So, yeah, on one hand, I can forgive that. On another, it's like, I got to heal from that.
Yeah.
Because my trust in people was just like, I was very arm's length with people for many, many years because I just didn't have that trust in people at all. And so that was the thing for me. I was very oddly codependent and passive aggressive. And I had these things that I needed to heal from that I wasn't even aware of. And he, for some reason, brought them out in me the way that I brought out my passive aggressiveness, and my codependency immediately triggered him. So all of the things that we needed to heal from, we triggered in each other, and were mirrors for that. And so it was horrible at first. We were fighting constantly. We were like, where is this coming from? And we were even told by people, like, you probably would be better off alone because you're trying to heal from this and you're making it worse for each other. But at the same time, it actually made things go faster. It accelerated the healing for us. And it was almost like, I kind of had this feeling like the universe was like, we have a job for you and we can't give it to you until you're done with this part of your life. So let's quickly get through this and then you can move on. So it just happened that the two of us together were just, it was some kind of...
So why the road trip then?
The road trip was that we literally freaked out and panicked to the point that we didn't know what to do and we weren't functional. We both felt like we had died. We both had a near-death experience because we got in a car wreck together. We hit a median going about 35 miles an hour, and the car flipped 3 times through the air and then landed on the hood of the car and skidded about 100 feet on the top of the car. And we got out and walked away from it. It was a Fiat. So
holy cow.
Anybody that wants a Fiat, I'm telling you, the thing is freaking safe. So all the airbags went off, and there's no possible way that we should have just gotten out and walked away from that car with like some cuts. And so I got a bruise from the seatbelt, and he had some road rash from where his arm had been outside the window and got scraped. But that was the extent of our injuries, from at least ICU, like in the hospital, broken bones, all kinds of, long recovery. It wasn't like that. And so we kind of freaked out from that, and both kind of this feeling of lightness that we were dead. I felt like I was walking on air for like weeks after that, where my feet weren't actually touching the ground. And so I wasn't 100% convinced I wasn't dead. And that freaked me out. And we started talking about like, well, remember that movie Beetlejuice, where they get the handbook for the recently deceased? We're like, dang it, we need a handbook. We need a handbook for this because we are not going through this well. We are not functional right now, and we don't know what to do, and there's nobody to help us through this process. And the next day, the Course in Miracles arrived at my door, along with A Return to Love from Marianne Williamson.
That you had ordered?
Like, nope.
What?
Neither of us had ordered these books. And I tried to play it off real cool, like, Tony must have ordered these, so I'll just take them from the Amazon guy and be like, sure, yeah, I mean, I open it up and I see the books. I'm like, the books you ordered are here? He's like, I didn't order any books. And chills went down my spine. He's like, what did we get? And I'm like, we got a book called The Course in Miracles.
Ooh, that gives me the shivers.
I mean, literally goosebumps just talking about it now. He's like, what? And I opened it up and read the first page of like, this is a required course. Only the time that you take to actually read it is up to you, but it's, required reading. And I started bawling. Like, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what we asked for. Now, I found out like 4 months later that my mother had sent me those on a whim, just like, oh, she'd probably like these. But the timing, literally the day after I said, we need a handbook, just like out of jest, and I'm like, and it was so many experiences that we had like that were coincidental and synchronous. But when you have 100 of them in 100 days, you start freaking out. And it was just that, we'd basically had all these miracles kind of stored up in escrow, and we'd been doing this for so long that they couldn't get to us.
Miracles in escrow. I love that.
That's what they were, and we finally opened up to the idea that they were real. They just came in droves, it was all these multiple times a day. Sometimes we were getting these coincidental stories that would be on Google right when we were talking about it. It'd be information we needed to understand, or we'd walk around the block and we'd meet someone that would have information that we needed that never in a million years.
We were in the flow.
We were in the flow. And because I'd never been there before, I didn't know how to handle it. And he was kind of freaking out at the same time, having the same feeling. I'm like, I don't know if we're ready for LA, because the energy that's here is really overwhelming us. So we kind of had this feeling like it has something to do with LA. We got to get out of LA. We got to get our mind straight. Let's just go on the road, just the two of us, and get out of all this energy, and maybe we can figure this out. And so we got this crazy harebrained idea. Literally in the middle of the night, we packed some bags. We got in the car, no phones, no GPS, no nothing, and started driving on all the old Indian routes around the country. No highways whatsoever.
What do you mean? I'm going to stop you really quick because the thing just came on. I'm going to turn it off really quick. This is so fascinating. Hold on. I can hear it, and that means my microphone can hear it.
Oh, yeah. What is that? Okay. It's still going, though. What is it?
It'll stop. It's the heater.
Oh.
Don't you know it's hot in here? Actually, it cooled off a lot. Okay. What do you mean by Indian routes? What was that?
Like Route 66 is an old Indian route, but it's not a highway.
Yeah.
It's not an interstate. It's a highway.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like Highway 101 versus the 5.
Got it.
So we took all of those roads through the U.S. for several months, and we tried to come back to L.A., and I was like...
Did you work along the way? I mean, what did you...
No, we lived on my dad's dowry, basically. It was like this, something I'd always wanted to do was take a long road trip across the United States, and this was kind of like his way of saying, here you go.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel like it was my money. Like I said, it wasn't mine. And so this was the best way for me to cope. And so we just drove for months and months and months.
How long?
We initially left in November and went back to Kansas City to go through my dad's things and kind of filled the car up with all the things that I wanted.
Mm-hmm. That must have been quite an experience.
Yeah, that was eye-opening.
A person's life and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing.
It is.
It's just stuff, and then suddenly it becomes the person.
Right. And it's not anything that you ever think about, but then you walk into their house. I remember walking into his closet, and his smell hit me. Because all his clothes were still in there, and I just started bawling, and that's when I was like, oh my God, he's gone. I can't just talk to him. So that was the first trip. And then we tried to go back to LA because things were kind of good between us on the road trip. And then we got back and we immediately started fighting again.
So were you living out of the car? Were you staying in hotels?
Both. We were we would stay in a hotel and then one night, and then we would sleep in the car one night. Then we'd stay in a hotel and we'd sleep in the car for a night or two. And so because we had money at that time. And so we could kind of, it was glamorous camping for sure.
Yeah.
We got back to LA and we started fighting instantly. And we're like, fuck, it's LA. It's LA. There's something, we can't handle the energy here. We're not ready for it. Because we felt like these newborn babies, like when people talk about being reborn. I was like, oh, I get it now. I feel like, because you have a whole new brain functioning system and way of looking at the world. So I felt like a baby, and I just was not prepared for LA. And it became suddenly more important to deal with this than it did to deal with the acting. Even though I'd said I want to be a better actor and I want to do this, it became more important for me as a person to heal from all the things I needed to heal from, which turned out to make me a better actor. It was odd that the thing that I asked for ended up being I had to become a better person, not better at pretending to do things. So yeah, we went back on the road. We came back to LA once or twice through the trip and just didn't feel ready to be here. And by the time we had been on the road until March, it was March at this point, we just had the whole road trip it would be a whole podcast on its own. It was ridiculous. So many crazy things happened on it.
Name one thing or two things or three. Name 6 things.
Okay, well, let's just stay with synchronicity-wise. There was a moment in Colorado where we were arguing, and I think it had something to do with the fact that I was just so dead inside. And I wasn't able to like really see the beauty around me. And we're in Colorado, for God's sakes. It's gorgeous. And I'm like, I'm just not, yes, I see it, but I don't feel it in my soul. Something is wrong with me. Like I can't see this. And we turned the corner and the sun rays were coming through the sun and it was on the mountain. It was like pinks and purples. It was literally the most beautiful thing ever in existence. And I started bawling and he's like, so you don't see that? all right, I see it. You know, it's like I was asking for that opening, you know, and so God was like, all right, here you go. If you don't see this, like, it's not me, it's you. So it was one fucking night in Four Corners where we were fighting, and God, he literally, I think we were like in the middle of just breaking up, but you can't break up when you're in the middle of a road trip and neither of you have anywhere to go and you have one car. You know, 50 first dates where you like wake up and you're together and by the end of the night you're broken up. That was our life like daily for months. So we'd had a big fight, and there were times when he didn't know how to get me out of the way that I was thinking. So he would do something just straight up bizarre or something to snap me out of like this thought process that I was in. It's like 0 degrees outside. We're in the middle of Four Corners in February. There's nobody on the road. He pulls the car over and gets out of the car and just starts stripping down, like completely. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, you going to leave me now that I'm here just naked in the middle of Four Corners? Do you have that in you to just do that? And I'm like, no, get in the car. And he starts walking down the highway, butt-ass naked, to get me to not leave him, to get me to not leave him in that situation, in whatever it was that was happening in that moment. But there was like that's just one of, I can't even tell you like just how many times. Just lots of.
What made you decide then to head back to LA? How did you know when it was time?
We ran out of money.
Oh, that's great way to know.
We went through the entire amount of money and then started selling things out of the car because we still had like stuff from my dad and stuff with us, and we knew that like we had lost our apartment by that point. We went back at one point and put everything in storage. We were broke. And it was like, okay, well, we have to go somewhere. And the day that we woke up and it was like, we got to sell this Xbox right now or we don't have gas or money to eat or any way to get home. And there was a trucker there that was just like, all right, what do you got to sell? Because he could see it on my face. I was fucking desperate. I'd like never been in this situation where like I didn't know how I was going to get home. I'm in Nebraska, nowhere near California, and we have $0. Like, I didn't know what to do. And so he's like, well, you go and talk to people. You go find truckers that'll, I'm like, well, why can't you do it? He's like, because look at me. I'm like, nobody's going to talk to me. I look scary. It needs to be a woman, You go approach these people and tell them, we have stuff to sell. And so I did. I got up my courage and I'm like, okay, I'm just start talking to random strangers at a truck stop. And this guy comes over and he's like, all right, what do you got to sell? And he just starts buying everything out of the car, like hundreds of dollars. And he's like, have you guys eaten today? I'm like, no, we haven't eaten. He's like, come inside. And he bought us breakfast.
Oh my gosh.
Like, it just was,
angel.
He was an angel in that moment. And it just reaffirmed my whole belief in everything that I'd been saying all this time, that it was real. And, it was one of those moments. It was just like, I didn't know people were this good, know? So yeah, we had to come back. And when we got back, we had nothing. We had gone through everything. And so we did. We lived in the car for 6 months. And
so on top of the road trip, then you were in the car.
On top of the road trip.
That like? Would you just shower at the gym or something?
We did. We had a gym membership. Thank you, LA Fitness. You saved our lives. Thank you for these 70 LA Fitness around Los Angeles that we could go to at any point. There was one near I was working. We came back and somehow I got a job within a day.
Doing what?
telemarketing.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, worst job ever. Great company, but
everybody should do that at some point in their life.
Man,
I did that when I
great
was
acting training.
Oh God, it's so demoralizing. It's the worst.
It was
telemarketer.
It was so hard.
Yeah,
it was so hard, but it was it was what I needed, and they were the most beautiful company, loving people.
Good.
It made it a joy to be there, to be around them, to do this horrible job. So, it gave me somewhere to be, and it happened to be right on a street where the orange line ran through, and so it was easy to sleep there because it was a main street, but it wasn't like the houses had a wall of plants and stuff to keep them from hearing the orange line. So I could park right by work, and we'd just park in different places every night because you can't, people start seeing your car night after night, and they're gonna call. So
how did you take care of things like having a period or having to go to the bathroom? Or
that was the worst. The period was the worst. I'm telling you, that was because LA Fitness is only open 6 a.m. to 11. So between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. you don't get to go to the bathroom, or you go to the bathroom on the side of the road somewhere. So there is nothing like changing a tampon outside
in the middle of the road.
In the middle of the road. Yeah. But thank God it's 3 a.m. so nobody's paying attention.
And 6 months, it's a long time.
It was 5. I'm lying. It was 5 months, but it felt like a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think honestly the worst part of it was just that we joked about it. It was like, okay, well, the trunk is our closet, and the kitchen is our back seat, and we had names for each part of the car because where we kept things, and you have to constantly get out and rearrange the car because it gets cluttered so fast.
What kind of car was this that you were sleeping in it? Because you're both pretty tall.
It was a Jetta.
Oh, Jesus.
It was a Jetta. Yeah. So shout out to Jetta. It's possible to live in a Jetta for 5 months with all of your things and still have room to lay down and sleep.
Were you afraid at all, safety-wise? I mean, I imagine there's stuff that goes along with that.
There was one night.
Tony's military, so I'm sure that makes it feel safer. But
I definitely felt safer with him, but there were moments when, I was alone. I remember I came out of FedEx and Kinko's for internet. That's where you go to do your submissions and brush your teeth at 11 o'clock at night. I wasn't feeling one. I'd been in the bathroom for a long time, and Tony had already left the Kinko's and he'd gone to the car, and I didn't come out for a long time. And so he started to panic that somebody had picked me up. I'd come out before him and he'd missed me. And because he saw a van, he pays attention usually. He saw a van that had been parked near us, and when he came out, the van was gone. And so he started panicking that somebody had picked me up. And so he started driving around the neighborhood, panicking, looking for me. And I came out of the Kinko's, and the car's gone, and we don't have a phone. And so I'm standing there trying not to have a fucking meltdown and scream, and I was freaking out inside, and I'm just like, he'll be back, he'll be back, he'll be back, he'll be back, he'll be back. It's this mantra in my head, he's coming back, he'll be fine. He just went for something happened, he'll be back, he's not going to leave me here, but you don't have that knowledge, and you don't have a phone, and so you have to rely on this other person to be your person.
And what year is this, just real quick?
That was 2014.
Got it.
Yeah. And so I don't know, 10 minutes went by maybe. Not that long, but long enough that it felt like an eternity. And he came back and he's bawling. He's bawling. He's like, oh my God, you're okay. And I'm like, what happened? He's like, I thought somebody had taken you. Because that was a fear of, if you don't have somewhere to call your home and you're just out in the mercy of living in a parking lot or a street somewhere, that somebody will take you. And so I didn't realize until that moment that he had that constant fear in him, and he just didn't say anything. He held that all inside, that he was really he was taking charge of my safety, but never said it. And so I didn't really have too many of those moments because I felt pretty safe with him. And I was the one that was working at the time. I found the job. And so if I wasn't with him, I was at work. And when we were together, otherwise, we were at the gym, or, we were in the car, or we went somewhere together. We'd go to FedEx, or we'd go to Barnes & Noble and just kind of pass time.
It took 6 months for you to
build up enough money to get a place.
Because LA ain't cheap.
We had enough money to pay all the bills we had. We finally got a phone that we split between us. We were able to pay storage because we had a storage unit that had all of our things in it.
And you wanted to stay in LA because of your dreams.
Because of our dreams.
Yeah.
And the good thing about that road trip was that it made us 100% sure that LA was where we wanted to be. Yes, we are coming back here with a purpose, with new resolve, knowing who we are, knowing that we want to be together. All of these things got resolved for us on that trip. And so we were there purposefully, but it was difficult because now we'd put ourselves in a hole of now we have to come back from being homeless. Mm-hmm. I used to call it luxuriously homeless because we had a car, which is way different than not. But just things like food, I put on 25 pounds because we were eating
packaged food,
prepackaged foods because you can't cook, and we were living off the food bank, and it's white bread and peanut butter and not good stuff. And I would be eating and just crying because I'm putting all this weight on, but I didn't have a choice. And just, it was difficult to have everything so not settled, and because you can't put roots anywhere. And so anytime anybody wanted a piece of paper of where's your birth certificate? I'm like,
what was Tony doing for work this whole time?
He wasn't able to find a job. I think, what did he do? There was a month where he was out of work. And then I think he started finding security work or doing
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure. That fits.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. And, knowing him, he was a doorman or whatever, he was starting to find gig work, but it wasn't regular work. Mm. And
where was that moment of going, okay, it's time that we can get out of the car and get into an apartment?
God, we found a place that the deposit was only $300. So all we had to do now was save up the rent for a month and a half or 2 months of rent, and then the deposit. And when we found that place with that low deposit, it was okay, there's a possibility we can actually save this up and still pay all the bills that we have to pay on my income. And it was a place called the Roslyn, which I know I've talked to a lot of people. They've all been through the Roslyn. It's funny. It's this rite of passage for actors to go through the Roslyn.
I think there's a documentary about that place.
Is there? That wouldn't surprise me. It's a unique place.
Super familiar.
At the Hotel Artemis was filmed there. They used the Roslyn as the base for that story, but it's a low income place. It's got market rate at the top, but the whole bottom part is low income, and so it's got low income requirement and just a low deposit, and so we were able to save that up. But to get in there, it was so difficult. You have to call and go by and then get on the list and then fill out your application, then spend a month getting approved. And so we were ready, but we couldn't until we got the approval of yes, we have a spot for you. And we drove down there that day and saw the place. We're it's 300 square feet. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah, we moved in immediately.
Wow.
And that was the end of our homelessness.
And did that shift everything again?
It did. It was it was so beautiful to have a place to call home and a place to put things where we could start to. We were still submitting and we were still working on our careers, but it is very difficult to do when you're in the car. And
how did you not give up? That's the thing, because I think a lot of homeless people, and yes, you have the extra shelter of the car and each other, but that sense of hopelessness, I imagine, creeps in quite a lot.
It did. I remember about 4 months in, I was starting to get really weary. And I got off work one night on a Friday night, and I couldn't do it anymore. I was I can't, how much longer is this going to be? I need an end date. I can't keep doing this, not knowing how much longer it's going to be. This is killing me. My legs were swelling up from sleeping in the car. My ankles got huge, and I just kind of lost. I had a breakdown, and I just cried. And I think I didn't realize I'd been holding all of it in because I was trying to be strong and I didn't want him to think like, oh, you're this weak person and you can't tell me that this is hard for you or something. I don't know what was happening in my head, but I broke down and he's like, it's okay. Like, this is not easy. You have a right to be upset right now. And so I just cried for like an hour and I was like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. And he's like, me either. So for some reason, getting that was very cathartic. It got out of my system and I kind of had like this new, like, however long it takes. We're here for a reason. However long it takes, I have the ability to endure this and we'll get through it. And at some point very soon, I will be looking back and going, remember when we were homeless? And I knew it. And I just had to like know that day was coming and there would be an end date. This was not a nebulous thing that was going to last forever.
Were you able to practice self-care within the realm of your confines? Because like you were saying that like eating the crappy food, but were you working out at the gym? Or
I was.
You were, yeah.
I was working out at the gym and it was disheartening because I kept seeing the weight pack on and like it's really hard to like work out and see your body getting worse.
Yeah, it's hard to fight calories though. I mean,
because you're eating shit food and so like that was disheartening, but I tried the best that I could to just keep at my normal routine. I think that was very important, was keeping as much routine as possible of like, these are the things that make me functional. So that my brain said, yeah, this is fine. This is just what it is right now. You know, it's not forever.
Yeah. And so you get into the new apartment.
Yeah.
And now what's the new plan?
As far as what?
Where did you go from there?
We started doing background work and got on a place called Book Talent, brought us on and we were doing background work. And then I continued with I worked at that place for 4 years while I was doing, just still auditioning and just trying to build up some kind of career. You know, we're always working towards being a full-time actor. So it was really, that was the focus of just like really driving hard on like networking and meeting people. And then for some reason I had this brilliant idea. I'm like, Second City, I forgot about that place. Like I should check in there. And I got work study there.
Yeah, because it's not cheap to take classes.
It is not.
But they do allow you to work.
But they allowed me to do work study. And so I started doing that. And just whenever I could pick up an hour here, an hour there, I'd go and do work study and then put myself through the program there. And
you did conservatory?
I did. I graduated last October. So it was a fun experience.
It's amazing. All these things. I mean, it's stunning to me that you have lived many lifetimes within your lifetime.
I have.
Where are you now?
Right now, 2019 was good because I joined SAG in December, which was a goal of mine.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And
that
for
was
people
huge.
that don't know, that means that you've put in an X amount of hours, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So I'm now...
As an actor.
Union. Which is exciting. It just feels like a goal that I've had for so long to finally be there. And I didn't want to join before I was ready. Like a lot of people just say, oh yeah, I joined the union. I'm like, yeah, but do you have the training and the background and the resume to go up against people who are union?
Yeah. Did you do it as a background person or did you do it as a principal?
You know what's weird? I got my SAG eligibility on almost the very first job that I did 10 years ago. I did a web series in San Diego that I had a speaking part on. And in the middle of the web series, it went SAG. And so the moment your project becomes SAG, if you have a speaking part, you're eligible. So I had my eligibility for almost 10 years, but I didn't have the training or the resume or the need to be union yet. So
that's a lot of self-understanding, I feel like.
Yeah. I don't think it's very efficacious to join before you're ready because you can't compete. You're going against people who, like, what if I went up for a part against Nicole Kidman and I have background work on my resume? What's the point of showing up? I don't have the training or the skills necessary. background work was great for teaching me how to be on set and how to show up on time and to find out what all the roles are on set and what's expected of me and what proper behavior is and, you know, who does what. Like, those things are really good to learn, and I think background work is great for that, but you're not going anywhere from background work. You're just making a paycheck and learning how to be a good actor. So you still have to take the classes and get the training and get the jobs. It is similar to stand-up where some of it is just on the job. You got to show up and figure out how to be this person in real time, you know? And so that only happens by getting the work. So, yeah. So.
And somewhere along the way you got proposed to.
Somewhere along the way. You know, we decided that we would be engaged forever because that way we'd always be engaged with each other and
that's
not
fun.
like taking each other for granted. So I don't know that we will ever actually get married. I don't know that I even want to. To me, that piece of paper is a totally different thing than the commitment that you make to that person. So whatever. I don't care if we ever get married. I just like being with him.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so what's coming up for you?
What's coming up for me? Oh, God. I'm so focused on voiceover right now. That's really the thing that I'm like...
Like cartoons and things? Or?
All kinds. Like narration. I just bought a mic setup at home, so I'd like to do audiobooks. But my end goal is definitely narration. Like, that to me would just be the bee's knees to get up every day and go to like Nickelodeon studio and be, you know,
sure,
being characters, playing silly.
I think that'd be so much fun.
I think it'd be so much fun. I got to do one audition for Nickelodeon last year, and I was just overjoyed with the opportunity to even walk into the studio, walk into their sound booth, see it for real, and be there and audition. There was like 8 people in the booth. It was like the producer, the director, the writer. There were 2 writers, the casting person, the casting associate, an executive producer. They were all there for that audition. I was like fucking sweating. I was sweating so bad, and I was sick, and I was like, do not let them show them. Do not show them you are sick. Your voice is fine, because I had lost my voice, and like I was like, you are going to power through this, and just like you were healthy and well. And I went in there and like killed it. And I was like so proud of myself.
That's awesome.
Because I was so nervous. It was Nickelodeon, you know. So, yeah. So that is really my focus. 100% is that. And then writing. I like to write a lot. So.
You could write this. I would watch this movie.
I am writing this. I'm writing this in a couple of ways. I'm writing this as the road trip movie.
Yes, that makes total sense to me.
What a great road trip. And we have so many specifics. And then also as like a journey to enlightenment, kind of a self-help, kind of like, this is what happens when a atheistic comedian finds God through math with another atheistic comedian who finds God through math, and then they lose their fucking minds. And you know, so it's like, here's the path to enlightenment.
Sure.
You know, that
serpentine at best. Yeah. Wow. How can people find you if they want to?
People can find me. I don't social media much, to be honest with you. I have a Facebook, which is Lauren Holiday, actress Lauren Holiday.
Actress Lauren Holiday. So 2 L's or 1?
1 L.
1 L.
1 L. And then my Twitter is Lauren Holiday. I have a website, which is Lauren Holiday. My YouTube is up, Lauren Holiday Voices. So any of those places, you can find me.
Perfect. And I'll put links on heyhumanpodcast.com.
That'd be great.
Lauren, this is an extraordinary conversation. You've been through some stuff. And here you are.
Yeah.
Here you are. And one of my most favorite things about this show is that when I talk to people like you who have been through some stuff, because we all have been through stuff, it's that reminder that, the people, whoever's listening, your story is their story in some way, some little tiny way, to know that, you know, we've got each other's back. We're not alone. Other people are going through this stuff. You survived.
Yeah.
On a lot of levels.
Yeah. I didn't go back home to San Diego or Kansas City.
You survived in here too, like your heart and your head, you survived.
Right. I didn't lose myself completely.
Yeah, and even in the moments where you did, just a bit, you still found your way back. And I think that gives it's the light at the end of the tunnel instead of the train.
Yeah.
And I think we need that so desperately.
I think sometimes losing your head a little bit actually helps you find your sanity when you come back.
You must never lose that spark of madness, as Robin Williams said.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was a pleasure.
Oh, mine too. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Rate and review Hey Human on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening. Be well.